Welcome to Massachusetts Historical Swordsmanship, Art of the Rapier, Chapter 3, Beginning Practice, in which we'll cover what you need to know in order to run a class efficiently and safely, as well as warm-up and strengthening exercises. 3.1, Running a Class. There are several formations or ways in which you can arrange yourself and the students that facilitate explaining and teaching. The first is simply the demonstration. Here, I'm working with Brian, who's demonstrating a technique, while the rest of the class watches. Notice that my inside is towards the rest of the class, so that when I explain something, they can hear me and I don't have to speak over my shoulder. I would keep the same orientation if I was the one doing the demonstration. Then we have the circle. Here, the students are gathered around me while I explain a concept or idea. Remember that brevity is the soul of wit. You don't want to spend all of class time talking. I can put the students behind me. Here, they can get a perspective on what Audrey's doing, or, conversely, what I'm doing. The advantage to this is they get more of a first-person perspective on the technique. I can put the students in a line. Here, they're each going to take turns performing the technique with me. While there's some inactivity for the students who are waiting, the advantage is that, presumably, I'm giving the ideal cue. Each student does several repetitions and then goes to the end of the line so everyone gets a chance to practice. Facing pairs. This is what we might think of as a standard class formation. Students are practicing with one another while the instructor, that is me, goes around and offers corrections. It's not good to have the instructor participating because then they can't keep an eye on everyone. If there's an odd number of students, then one person stays out and makes sure to rotate. Of course, it would have been more advantageous if Paul, rather than just waiting, was working on one of those wall targets. 3.1.2, a note on teaching new skills. First, keep explanations brief. Use tactile feedback when possible. Give simple visual imagery. Do not overcorrect. Speak in positives. Concentrate on the big picture and then refine the small stuff. See the book for more details on this. Three point 2, a note on stretching. Be sure to read this in the book. Here I am demonstrating some important stretches. First, the hamstring stretch. In a downward dog position, I cross one ankle over the other and stretch out my hamstrings by pressing my heel into the floor. Pigeon posture is a really good hip opener. I cross my one leg underneath myself and allow my body weight to sink down into my hip. Triangle pose is really good for opening up the lateral muscles and really getting a sense of balance and openness. I'll demonstrate it here from both sides. Doing something like the bridge pose can help to loosen up a tight back, but be very careful if you're going to do a full bridge and especially balance on your head. 3.3, warm-ups and calisthenics. Here, I'm going to demonstrate some exercises starting with the sun salutation. First, from standing, look up, come down, touch the floor, flat back, palms on the floor, jump back, come down the plank, up to cobra, back to downward dog, put your heel on the floor and bring a foot up, and then push up into a lunge. Spiral down, and do the sequence again from plank to cobra to downward dog, ground the other heel, reach the other foot forwards, and push on up, keeping your knees bent into a lunge. Come on back down to plank, up, back, and jump up. This is a great exercise for building muscle and balance. You can also do it in this advanced version, instead of stepping your feet, jumping them. So up, down, plank, up, back, jump into lunge position, staying low, and then of course do the other side. I usually start with my right side, but in actuality it doesn't matter just as long as you do both sides. Make sure to breathe in and out each movement. Breath control is very important. You can also modify this if you're not quite as fit or you maybe have some balance or physical problems. Here, I am slowly getting down on my knees. I can do a modified push-up, keeping my knees on the floor though my upper body is still in a straight line, and then come up to one knee on the floor, push my heel back, and then, supporting myself on my thigh, come up and down into my lunge position. I do the same thing on the other side, push myself back, put the other knee up, support myself with my elbow on my knee, push my heel back, come to my lunge position, gently let myself down, put my knee down, come up, stretch up, back, and then I can slowly get back up. Another modification is possible if you lack the balance or coordination by using a chair as a prop or assist. So I do the same thing as I did before, but here I'm using the chair to support myself to come back and down, still keeping my upper body as straight as possible, coming back, using the chair to help me get up there, still supporting myself on my thigh, pushing my heel back, coming to my lunge position, stretching out, helping myself back down with the chair as a support, come down, up, back, do the other side, push the heel back, come on up, exhale down, and come on down. No matter which variation you use, be sure to pay careful attention to your breath. Exhale with each exertion. 3.3.2 Shaolin, so named because they look like kung fu poses. This is a great flexibility exercise. Lunge, bring your heel up, come to a hurdler stretch, shift to the lunge in the other direction, and then do the same thing. Come on back to your forward lunge and recover. Turn around, lunge, heel up, hurdler stretch, lunge the other direction, heel up, hurdler stretch, back to your original lunge, recover, and that's one repetition. 3.3 Side plank jump. So this is a variation on the regular side plank. Jump to the other side, do your side plank, jump to the other side, hold it, put your hand down, jump to the other side plank, and keep going. 3.3.4 Medicine ball push-ups. This is actually really difficult. I put the ball down, I do a push-up on it, which requires careful balance. I come to a squat and I push up from the squat to throw the ball to Paul. He does the same, comes down to a squat, throws me the ball, and we trade over and over as many repetitions as we like. 3.3.5 Medicine ball sit-ups. So this is a sort of weighted sit-up. I reach over my head with the ball, I throw it to Paul, he reaches over his head, goes up. Make sure to keep the ball over your head as you come up. Don't use the ball and its momentum to force yourself up. 3.4 Footwork practice in games. You can do this in many ways. The first is simply lead footwork, which is very common. I can do this with a visual cue. So here I'm going to lead the class with my own footwork. When I lower my sword, they lunge. I make them recover forwards or redouble. I make them recover, I advance and they retreat, etc. You can also use an oratory cue. Here the class is going to keep its distance from me. One tap of my sword is a lunge, two taps is a redouble or an advanced lunge. So there's a lunge, recover back, lunge and redouble. 3.4.2 Partnered footwork. So one game I like to play is with the medicine balls. Here, Brian and Paul are simply practicing throwing the ball by extending their arms, leading with their hands, not their feet. You can then throw the ball, and after your release, move your foot forwards. Throw the ball and release. From there, you could do it smoothly together and then add footwork. Here, Brian and Paul are doing the same exercise, adding footwork, which actually makes it more difficult. Paul throws the ball, but he should be leading with his hand. Brian varies the speed of his footwork and extends and throws and lunges. Make sure to keep your elbow tucked in and your hand moving in a straight line. 3.4.3, the compass drill. I illustrate this in Chapter 2, so please see the previous video. 3.5.1, push hands. It's easier to learn to counterattack with our hands, which we've had our whole lives, than with a sword. Here, Brian is trying to touch Audrey's shoulder. In response, she goes to touch his nose. This diverts Brian's hand. It's the same as a counterattack with opposition with the rapier. You do the same thing on the inside and then add footwork. When Brian goes to touch Audrey's shoulder, she, in response, goes to touch his nose, gaining an advantageous angle. 3.5 games. I covered this in the book, but I want to cover boffer fencing in motion in 3.5.3 in this video. Here, Brian and Audrey are playing a game where they're each trying to hit, but the objective is to draw the other person's attack and do a getaway go so that it falls into the void, and then, as Brian just did, make one's own attack. This will be continued in Chapter 4.